Save the Graves is a nonprofit. We do cemetery restoration largely. But we're all about making these places whole again. And I gotta turn this off, the volume's gotta be turned down back there. And this place actually has people looking out for it. So it's the exception. There's a lot of public cemeteries that are either owned and operated by the city or the county, and they have much larger struggles. They're also much larger cemeteries. And we'll drive through the biggest one today without stopping, because it's not lesser known. But we will also visit some of the other ones. Two actually, they're city operated. So we do tours like this just to raise awareness of these places, because over the years, awareness of our cemeteries sort of slipped away. And now there's a new generation of people like me, baby boomers, that got to a certain age where we never cared about history or any of this stuff, and then all of a sudden it was all we cared about. And so, by the way, we are called tephophiles. Tephrophile is somebody with a peculiar fascination for old cemeteries. So the actual word. We do this tour. We've got other tours, more far-flung tours, North County, South County. This county's got 120 cemeteries. A lot of them are small little things on ranch property or something. But a number of them are, former gold camps and stuff, and they're really historic and really interesting. Some are quite difficult to get to, and I like those. I especially like those. We also do a lot of volunteer work parties. So we connected with these El Dorado Hills youth service groups. There's these big groups that help these kids get their service credit at high school and junior high, or middle school it's called here. And so, we can turn out sometimes 30 or 40 kids, each one with a parent, into a cemetery to do work when we can come up with kid-suitable projects. And the one that has hit the sweet spot that they really enjoy is headstone cleaning. The lichen that you see on old headstones, especially the marble ones, is very damaging, and it can be easily removed. You have to kind of not be harsh with them, but you have to use special biological chemicals, or Dove dish soap in Mary's case. Either way, it's a good family project, and they come out, do it for a couple hours, on a summer Saturday morning, and everybody, and I force feed them history the whole time, which the parents love, and the kids actually don't seem to mind that much, as long as it's sensational and gory. And we'll have some of that today too, by the way. The way some of these people died was not particularly pleasant, but it happened, so we're going to hear about it. I want to raise awareness of these places, and these people are interested, and you can visit these places. Now, why does nobody know about these places? Well, it's because my predecessors, out of chagrin, basically, decided that the only way to protect these cemeteries was to keep them a secret. And so they wouldn't tell anybody where they were, and then this thing called Find a Grave got launched. Anybody here not know what Find a Grave is? Find a Grave is a website where all these graves are on it. And researchers who don't really want to leave their bedroom or their computer can sit there all day and research the heck out of these things, and they've got a place to put it. And then people like me, who lose their brains after 15 minutes of staring at that screen, can just scrape it all off there and tell you about it on tours like this. It's so awesome. And it's really easy to use, and you can just pump in Methodist Church Cemetery, and it'll give you everybody that's in here. Save the Graves formed in 2019. We were a fiscal sponsee of the Arts Council, and then later on, Imagination Theater. From the beginning, we've been supported by generous funding from the Latrobe Fund. A lot of the interpretive material we've placed in cemeteries 2 or 3 years ago is now failing because it was all made in my garage. And don't laugh. Yeah. Well, anyway, we got a grant last year from the Latrobe Fund to replace and update all that material with actual stainless steel signage and real metal stands and stuff. The old headstones, one of the reasons we clean them is you can't read them. The crud is so thick that it covers up the lettering, and after a while it actually eats the lettering. See, there was marble and then there was granite. Granite came after about 20 years, but the early ones, like a lot of these, not quite all, but most of these are all marble. Marble is peculiar. It was highly esteemed. It was all imported in the early days from Vermont or Italy, but it wasn't. It was expensive, but not crazy because they could use it as the ballast in the ships. So that's how the marble got here. But there's all different qualities. The stuff that's deep in the ground is hard and holds up really well. It's amazing. You got 150-year-old marble. It looks like it was carved yesterday sometimes. But a lot of the stuff was not from that deep, and it has not fared as well. It soaks up more moisture and is prone to more damage. Most of the cemeteries we're going to visit today get very little maintenance. So this is the time of year to go because they're not overgrown yet. You don't have to wade through the weeds and worry about rattlesnakes or anything. There's not a lot of money for these. All but one are barely maintained. The one is the Catholic cemetery, and they are still burying people, and they are really responsible, and they're doing it right. That's St. Patrick's. What we've got here is a really cool old church and a cemetery. We know a lot more about the church than the cemetery. So forgive me, I'm going to go on about the church for 5 minutes now because it's just that cool. And it just went through a big renovation, and a lady in the middle of that, sitting right here, Mary Morissette, was very involved in that. She represented this church, and she received the Historical Society's
2025 Preservation Award.
2025 Preservation Award. So with any luck, this is the first of 3 such award winners that you will meet today. Number 1. Okay, this church has been an important local institution for 175 years. It began life as the Methodist Episcopal Church. Right here in 1851, a guy named Frank Goyon donated the land, went to San Francisco to purchase building materials that he couldn't get locally, because in 51 you couldn't get everything locally. Beams and studs were hand hewn from local timber, but things like the siding and other hardware came around the horn. The lumber industry, population was taken off, but the lumber industry had not yet taken off. And what little lumber there was going in to hold up gold mines. The Blair family would encamp right down the street here at the base of Thompson Way very shortly thereafter and establish a lumber empire here that would go for many years. Save the Graves honored the Blair family 2 years ago. We portrayed 11 different family members, some by their descendants. So we had, the founding guy, John Blair, the original Blair. We had his great-grandson portraying him. And he was a pretty good actor, too. It was very cool. Like the church, the cemetery dates to the early 1850s. The church did great for the first decade. It was actually a little bit over there at the time. But they outgrew it. By 61, they were ready for a bigger place. And so, let me get ahead of myself. Placerville suffers horrific fires in the 1850s, all the gold rush towns. And this one burned down twice in 1856 alone. And so there's stories, I don't know if they're validated, but you always hear the stories about the churches and sometimes the prostitutes becoming caregivers to the sick during the pandemics, cholera and typhoid and stuff. So there are those stories about this church. It was located just north here. It was probably half again its current size. But by 61, they wanted to build a large brick church down basically where C&H Motors is, at the intersection of Cedar Ravine and Main Street. And that's what they did. The Presbyterians erected their own right down the street, another huge brick building. I'd love to know where all these bricks ended up going, because both these buildings were torn down. The Presbyterians was right across from the courthouse, roughly where the brick restaurant is. This building was sold to a guy that had the neighboring lot down there where they were going in, and he dragged it down the hill, and he had a one-story stone structure, and he plopped this on top of it. It became the second, Mary's got a picture, became the second story of this building. And then he re-sided the whole thing, and it was good. It was good for like 75 years, in fact. So that's what happened. There were porches, and then they fell off, and then there was some more, and then they fell off again. And so yeah, wooden porches, as you can imagine, that era didn't last that long. So fast forward to the 1920s, the church is again expanding. Members purchased the adjacent two-story building from the guy, apparently having forgotten that the second half used to be their original chapel. I don't know that, Mary, maybe you do. And remodeled it into classrooms, pastor's offices, youth center, whatever, and it ends up being part of the church. Okay, that was the late 20s. 44, now we're in World War II era. Both the Presbyterian church down the street and the Methodist church here are suffering in attendance. Their old brick buildings are now falling apart. They need a lot of maintenance. They decide to consolidate, and they form the Federated Church. So the Methodists and the Presbyterians get together and create what the church we know today. And they build the current Federated Church 9 years later in 53. A few years after that, the two church buildings on Main Street and Cedar Ravine down here, the brick church and the two-story thing, were sold to fund construction of the community center down here, which is an amazing room. A lot of good stuff happens in there. Again, origin of the second story, the smaller building, long since forgotten by this structure here. So in 58, a guy named Sam Evans is contracted to demolish the brick church and the two-story building. He knocks the bricks down, but he's taken the smaller building apart and he makes a startling discovery. Hand-hewn beams. Hand-hewn studs, way thicker than normal lumber. What's going on here? There's a separate building inside the one he's tearing down. Thankfully, Sam stops the demolition process and notifies church officials. If he hadn't stopped, we wouldn't have this today. But they figure it out and eventually identify the top half as this original church. Church member and Historical Society president, a guy named John Hassler, spearheads the restoration efforts. And in here I got a bunch of other groups that got involved, including a lady named Vivian Carpenter, who's come up again multiple times today. They took the old church apart, painstakingly encoded the pieces, hauled them up the hill to this location, and reconstructed the chapel you're sitting in today. Now, in subsequent years, and they couldn't, the whole thing didn't make it. Parts of it were too far gone, so that's why it's smaller. It's had repeated bouts of bugs and decay, and so there was some very dramatic and well-documented, long-lasting fundraising efforts to restore it. Another notable local person named Clara Nielsen spearheaded an 8-year renovation that really left it looking like this.
My name's Mary Morissette. I do the maintenance on the building, the main church, all the grounds, including the historic church and the cemetery. So Mike covered most everything. Last February, we had a fundraiser thanks to the El Dorado County Historical Society, Sean Manwaring and Jacob Rigoli. Save the Graves, thanks to Mike Roberts and Dan Trainer, and all the proceeds from the ticket sales went towards helping restore this building, plus an amazing grant from the Latrobe Foundation and a private member of the church donated in like. So we've been able to put a new roof, take care of the woodpecker holes that were all around the cupola, all around the edge. They replaced all the dry rot, and if you can tell, we're still in the process of repainting the entire building. So the front half, this half is done, They're working on that side and the back. They're replacing any more dry rot wood they can find. They're countersinking the nails and covering them with spackle and sanding them. So it's beautiful. They've done an amazing job. Seth Dassman is the contractor who has a love for working on historic buildings in the county. He is a contractor and he'll build a deck and build a house, but he loves doing historic buildings. So thanks to Sean and Jacob, they referred him to us, and I've been in contact with him. When I started as the maintenance person here, I'm also a volunteer, but I have a lot of good volunteers from the church, including Mary Jo's husband, Tom, who helps. And I discovered through DIY YouTube videos how to clean up the headstones. And I did not want to use anything caustic or acidic because I didn't know about it. So I just warm water at dawn and a soft brush. And I wanted to get the kids from the church involved. So they came out one August or September day when it was nice and warm. I had a bunch of buckets, a bunch of brushes, turned them loose in here, showed them how to do it. It made a big difference. It may not be as clean as if you use the other product, but it was great.
Let me tell you my version. So there's one product approved by the VA for this, and I didn't want to get questioned early going because people were looking over my shoulder saying, you shouldn't be touching these old headstones. And I'm like, no, we want kids putting their hands on these old headstones and owning them. And so I've used $60 a gallon D2 biological cleaner since day one so that I didn't have to fight this fight. And Mary comes along and uses diluted Dawn dish detergent and does just as good of a job. I love it.
Let's see, where was I? So I'm going to do that every year as long as I'm the maintenance person here. August, September, when it's nice and warm, you don't mind getting wet. Anybody that wants to come out from the community, not just our church, and we'll clean them. And I work every year trying to get all the leaves and the pine needles and cut the weeds down when I can. And I get volunteers to help with that too. So it's a awesome, great project, and I love doing it. And one thing I do want to mention, and Mike would probably point it out, the one headstone right there is the woman at the well.
Yeah.
Which I understand that there's only 2 in El Dorado County. Yeah, so that's kind of cool. So right now there's 2 posts out there that's holding up our plaque. I actually have it down to repair it. So it's in my workshop, AKA the shed. And Seth has told me how to repair it because it's just plywood and the rain gets in there and it's just warped it. So I'm gonna get that fixed and get that put out. This is what it says on the plaque, and I can hand that around. If I had been more on the spot, I would have made copies, but this and that picture we keep in here. And like Mike says, we still use this. We use it at Christmas, we use it for weddings, we use it for memorials. Speak to Jan in the office if anybody wants it. It's an open cemetery. I come out here and there's lots of people walking through, and I tell them what little I know about the cemetery. So we love having people visit. Cool. So thank you.
And so the signs we're talking about is a great example of the importance of interpretive material. And I've kind of nicknamed myself Joe Sign because we have all this cool stuff in El Dorado County, but you don't know what it is. Sometimes you've been around long enough that you know that it's something, but you don't know what it is. And maybe it's on the internet someplace, maybe it's not. I'm real big on putting a sign right there that tells you what it is. So that's a prime example. They've got a wonderful sign right in front of here that lays out the history of this place in 3 sentences, much more concisely than I did. Because that's how we make the connections. The quality of community is about connections to place, connections to history, connections to each other. And that's what Save the Graves is all about. We're trying to build connections to the past using the cemeteries as the vehicle. Liz is tired of reading this in the preamble to every grant I write, but I'm a firm believer, and the signs are a big part of that. So we'll be placing another 24 interpretive signs in all different cemeteries over the course of the summer, and also signs at the entrances. People, you drive by Diamond Spring Cemetery on Highway 49, you don't even know it's there. Okay, you're going to know it's there. Back to here. The cemetery's history is a lot muddier than the church's history. Portions of 2 other old cemeteries were moved here as Placerville quickly grew from a gold camp into a town. And this was pretty common during the day. They were pretty good about it. They generally dug up the remains and did it respectfully and even filled out permit forms that was burned with the courthouse. But there was a pioneer cemetery that was here beneath the current parking lot and around the north side. Most of those graves got moved, but this is the first of two places you'll be today where you're going to be walking on people that are down under a parking lot. Welcome to El Dorado County. But it's it's difficult. You technically are supposed to find family members. There was so much itinerant people here in the early days, so I'm sure they did their best. There was a little known cemetery called Log Cabin Ravine Cemetery located along Bedford. That was probably moved here. We're not exactly sure. Researchers suspected maybe the remains weren't moved, maybe just the headstones kind of placed randomly around. Hard to say. Headstones in this cemetery have seen a lot of abuse and not much love until recently. What has been done restoration-wise here, headstone repair-wise, was done by well-intentioned, but they took the tops, which were still laying on the ground, and smooshed them into concrete. And now that's weird because normally the tops, when they break, the tops are what disappears, and the stubs are all there. So I'm not sure what was going on, but a bunch of them have that done, and I'm not comfortable chiseling those out. At this point, they're going to stay that way. But there's some, they're just laying on the ground in pieces and can be reassembled, and that's what we want to work on this year. So, like I said, we're going to host a couple classes. And I apologize, my handout, I didn't renumber all the pages when I smooshed all the PDFs together. So the first page 4 has a little section I sometimes do on these tours called Ways to Die. Because in the 1800s here, life was cruel and short. There was no safety net. There was a lot of accidents, a lot of disease there was no cures for. We don't know a lot about, a lot of these people here were here so early that who knows who they were. But we've got a few, and let's go ahead and get out into the sun and we can look at those. All right, so we're just going to take a quick walk through here. See if this is going to work without me doing that volume control. You can see some beautiful old headstones. Look at the size of that. Look at this. That's a husband and wife. The handshake actually can mean different things depending on details. The cuff is the giveaway here. Female, male. Great shape. We don't know a thing about the people. So this is the terrain's a little rough here. If you don't have good shoes on or are not real able-bodied, we're just going to take a 3-minute loop here. So this guy here, Alderson, has got a little history. He was a miner, and he fell down the shaft 60 feet, sustaining injuries with which he died today. He was a sober, industrious man and leaves 3 orphaned children. Died 3 days before Christmas. Yeah, a lot of tragic stuff. So here's one that, this is one that probably need to turn that up a little bit or something. Here's one that we could probably fix. There's one that needs to be straightened. Another one. The bottom half needs to be straightened. I was looking for Asa Stevens' camp, and he's back up the top. But we'll take a quick look at the woman at the well, which is my favorite one here. I used to think Union Cemetery had the only woman at the well. This is Jesus, and he's at the well, and is it a Pharisee? Who is it? Mary? Help me out with the symbols. Anyway, woman at the well, very unusual headstone symbol. One here. Oh, this guy here too, yeah. Actually, it's his grandson. Is the death that's recorded. This is Asa Stevens Camp. So we got a great picture of him. He looks awesome. And the story of the death of his son on his grandson rather, on Reservoir Hill in a shooting accident. So it's sad. There was a lot of gun accidents. There was a lot of wagon accidents. They fell out of their wagons. Wagons didn't do well on the side of hills. They tipped over, which is why the whole wagon immigration here is such an amazing story, because they couldn't go up steep things, they couldn't go on the sides of hills, and yet somehow they got through the Sierra Nevada mountains and the Wasatch Mountains, and it's like a miracle.
Block and tackle.
Yeah, sometimes it was block and tackle for sure.
This is marble?
Yeah, this is marble. All the white stuff is marble. So this one's in pretty rough shape. We can probably stand it up and glue portions of it together, at least get it off the ground.
So this is when they cemented it, is that what you said? That cement right there?
Yeah, that's there's some failed there's some failed stuff, so all that has to be ground off, and then you go with the modern stuff.
Right there.
And they were doing the best they could, but they didn't have, see, on the east, a town like Placerville will have 2 or 3 companies that do headstone restoration. I mean, cemeteries are a much bigger deal in the east. And so they have developed, back in the east, all these amazing products and techniques and consultants. I've actually called people, and they are very disdainful that we're trying to do any of this stuff. You need to hire a professional, you can't do this yourself. Because in the early going, we didn't know how to do it. We fixed headstones with steel brackets. We custom fabricated steel brackets and stood them up and put them in there until somebody came along that knew how to do all this fancy East Coast gluing. And weirdly, somebody did. And now he is very disdainful of all the brackets we did the first year. So it's like, what are you going to do? But anyway, the brackets are not an original idea. It's been done. The whole problem is that these things not only soak up moisture and release it, they move, they swell and shrink. And so if you make your brackets too tight, the whole thing clusters up around your brackets. So it's got to be kind of loose. We did, I think, 14 of them that way over at Union Cemetery. That back there was Raymond Oldfield. He was also shot. 2 gun accidents. Asa was a miner, a lifelong gold miner.
That's my father's name too.
Oh yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, real old style name. You see some classic and beautifully, and this is a great example of a headstone they cleaned up really well. Look at this old marble. It's spectacular. And also, by the way, it's signed. So these carvers in the early days signed their work. So you can see it right down here. Yeah. This is by Boynes, and then there's some other name on there.
Wow.
And I don't know who that other name is. Oh, Sacramento.
Okay.
So Boynes was one of about 4 early stone carvers that are operating around here, and that was his advertisement. So it's subtle and it's low because he doesn't want to upstage this guy, George. You know. But it's kind of a mystery. Some of them are signed, but most aren't. So would love to get a feel for what that's about. But if you're a really geekoid taphophile, you collect signed markers. So I'm really proud of the ones I know about in Placerville. I'd forgotten about this guy actually. This is a nice solid thing. A lot of them are thinner, and it just made them more fragile and harder to repair. There was also, for many years, the restoration took the form of setting them down in concrete, and the preservationists are mixed on that because they can collect water.
Yeah.
So look at this gorgeous thing. Yeah. And that's one of the 2 original. Divine is one of the original headstone carvers. But you come here after a rain and there's water sitting in here. So Mary, what are we going to do about this? Where are you? What are you gonna do about all the water that collects in this thing? It's a bird bath.
And they came from Wilton, Franklin County, Maine, a lot of them, huh? They're talking down here too.
Oh yeah?
They came from Maine.
Yeah, well, that would have been the way it worked. Somebody wrote a letter home and said, you know, it's not that bad here.
It's not that cold here.
Yep.
I wonder how they got here,
Yeah.
by boat or by wagon.
This is one family. But you also got Miller
This is
over there.
coping. It's called coping. They put fences around the
And you
block.
have someone else who.
They mainly decorative, but it was a sign inside.
With Miller? Yeah, that's what I was thinking. This was yeah.
See some later today. They were cast iron and wrought iron, but these are just iron bars with stone posts. So you guys got your maps? We don't want to lose anybody this time. I hate losing people.